Hey, so in this session, I want to go over a helpful tip that I want you to keep in mind while you're practicing your natural vision, right? So now you may have heard of the 20 20 20 rule, which is after you've been looking at your screen, could be a laptop, could be a pad, could be your phone for 20 minutes. You're supposed to look at an object that is at least 20 feet away for 20 seconds, right? And the reason they say you should do this is because it is supposed to be helpful for reducing the strain that builds up long term while you're, staring at the screen for such a long time, which is usually 7 to 8 hours a day if you have a corporate job, right? So, of course, looking up close for that long is a little bit unnatural, but I don't think that's the reason why so much strain builds up, right? I'm pretty sure it's because of the artificial screens we're looking at. Because, ancient people, they used to, kind of work for long hours up close using their eyes all day, and they didn't really have that much of an issue with eye strain like we do today. Myopia is just skyrocketing basically because of our modern lifestyles, basically. So, the one tip I want you to keep in mind is that as you're going throughout your daily life, as you're walking outside and whatnot, is to try and practice your visual habits at objects that are in the distance, right? Which are more than 20 feet away. Basically, while your eyes are not accommodating. Your eyes accommodating meaning your eyes have adjusted for objects at the near point so that they come into clarity, basically, where otherwise they would be blurry when your eyes are relaxed and looking at the distance. The reason you want to do this is because onto my previous video point, which was partially about central fixation, right? Meaning your central point of vision should be the area of your vision which is seen most clearly, and that point of vision should be extremely small. And the smaller it is, the better your vision is, right? And to practice this natural way of seeing, remember, you're supposed to try and regard only a small part of the greater objects that you're seeing, right? And making sure that the part you're regarding is clearer than the rest of the greater objects, right? So your central vision should be the clearest part of your vision. And as you deviate from the center all the way to the peripheral part of your vision, it should get blurrier and blurrier, which is the way the eye is naturally supposed to see. So the reason why you want to practice looking at objects in the distance rather than close up while you're practicing this is because it's just easier, right? Meaning that objects that are a greater distance away from you is going to be smaller. than objects that are closer, naturally. So that means it's going to take up a smaller part of your greater vision in terms of the size, right? And that makes it easier to practice the central way of seeing that I'm talking about. Because naturally, your eye is going to see that way. The smaller and the greater the distance the object is away from you. So even while you're doing this, while the object is, greater than 20 feet away, you still want to look at the smaller part of the object and make sure that that part of the object you're regarding is the clearest. Okay, so of course, doing this requires most of us, to be outside, right? Because I don't think most indoor spaces have that type of distance that we can work with, usually. So you want to be in wide open spaces like, a park, in nature, on the trails, in the mountains, on the hills, whatever, wide open spaces basically where, you can look in multiple directions and you see just a big open space where there's not a bunch of, objects in the foreground, basically, like you get when you're, walking throughout a city, for example, or indoors. So this is going to help you practice that natural way of seeing. Remember, that's the natural way of seeing. And make sure while you're doing this, you're seeing the world move around you. So as you're walking outside, for example, every step you take, you should see the world move slightly, either from side to side a little or up and down, right? So you want to be constantly seeing the world moving. This is relaxing to the eye. Remember, the eye wants to constantly move. So if you're trying to make the world still, like a picture frame almost, you're straining. Because you're not allowing the eye to do what it naturally wants to do, which is move and scan, right? So yeah, this is one tip I want you to keep in mind while you're practicing your natural daily vision habits, right? Of course, remember the greater goal is to remove strain from the mind, right? And by extension, once you do that, you're removing the strain to see at the distance. The strain to see at the distance being the definition of myopia, right? That's the one thing I want you to remember. Practice daily too.